never like this is never normal to me. It's kind of weird, but I'm still going with it. Welcome everybody to another episode of Uncovering Creativity with Chad Hobson, and we have
Niyah.
beautiful. So Niyah, do you want to take an opportunity to tell everybody a bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, I honestly always get tongue-tied with this question because, all right, we'll start here. Well, I have trouble with this question because I'm a very multifaceted person. So, I guess some ways to describe myself, I'm a dynamic, multifaceted, creative, and yeah, like what aspect of myself, like I'm an artist. I love to connect, create, explore. Right now I'm a part in my life where I'm just learning. I'm like on a creative journey now. So um damn, like I don't know how to answer this question. Like this is so big. Like I also am somebody who is, how do I describe this? I don't like to just use the word spiritual to kind of like encompass everything, but like
Yeah, I'm curious what other word you use instead of spiritual, if you could break that down.
I'm trying to find the word because spiritual right now, I feel like it's honestly been very diluted and there's also like a lot of different perspectives on it. So I don't like to just
Yeah.
use that blanket statement. But I
Yeah.
would say that I'm someone who, if I were to describe that aspect of myself, I've coined it kind of like as a mystical alchemist because mysticism, I really follow like the path of uh, for lack of better words, becoming one within self as a reflection of being one with God or one with the Most High or one with the Absolute, however one wants to conceptualize that. And then in regards to the alchemist part, I'm someone who transforms, innovates, creates. So mystically, with my creation, with my relationship with the Most High, I transmute, transform situations, my life, create like what I create. So that's kind of like my little thing that I've coined for myself to describe that aspect.
Hmm.
So yeah, like that's me there. And so I'm like, basic things like I'm 22, not really working right now, full-time artist. I got to coin myself as now because of my job and I'm betting on myself in that regard. And yeah, like I'm friendly. I like to talk to people, family oriented, like, just the basic things. I love people. I love connecting. I'm a creator, so of course. And yeah, I think that covers it for the most part.
Hmm.
There's more, but in other words.
It's interesting when you said that you're an alchemist. I resonated on 100%. You said the word transmute. For those that probably aren't aware of artistry and the ability to transmute, do you want to break that down? What that means?
Ooh, okay, I'll try.
Sorry,
So
if I get deep, you just tell me, Chad, like pull me back up.
no, like we could dive. Like I appreciate
I
us.
I don't like that surface level stuff.
Thank
I'm
you.
not down for
Okay.
that. So but I put that out there anyways. You let me know if I'm going too deep. You don't have to answer everything, but I'm curious what you mean by transmutate.
So what comes to mind for me at first is the concept of turning metal to gold or turning nothing into something or changing the, it kind of coincides with innovation in a way. So to transmute is to, because the word mute is derivative of mutable. So like you're transitioning something in a mutable way. So it's like this motion of like work like this, and then it's like, if that makes sense.
No, it's a beautiful analogy because it's almost like it's the same way somebody would take clay and mold it and shape it into something that they want.
Exactly. And then you fire the clay, you do this, you do that, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that whole process of taking something and even using, like, making it yours or making it what you want it to be, or like literally just like, I'm a very
It's
visual person, as you can see. So words are my
no,
forte,
100%.
but I
Yeah.
can illustrate. But yeah, so that's kind of what's coming to me right now to best describe it, but if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
No, 100%. I think one of the first things I realized when I was on my creative journey, because I've dealt with depression in the past, still pops his head up occasionally. But one
Mhm.
of the first things that I realized was, I think it was Einstein that said it. Energy cannot be created, destroyed. It can only be, um, what was it? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be
Is it transform?
transformed. That's the word I'm looking for. It can only be
Mhm.
transformed.
Mhm.
So what that allowed me to see, actually, and actually, one thing I realized about creative energy, it is very chaotic. It
I love
is.
it.
It is. It is like I remember I drew a picture in my notebook when I was like 19 or 20
Mhm.
of just what this image was, and it was a black ball in like a corner of a room, and it's kind of like what Venom is from Spider-Man.
Um, Loosely, I can picture it, so I can
He has
conceptualize
like
it.
this black it's called a symbiote. It's like this, he has this black alien, I don't even know what it is exactly, but it's just this alien, um almost like a, it's not a liquid, but it's a substance that's alive and basically takes him over. He turns into Venom, has a mind of its own, da 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 da. But
Mhm.
essentially, that's what that creative energy is. And what I realized is, if energy cannot be created, destroyed, or going to be transferred or whatever, that creative energy is creative potential. And if I don't utilize it,
Mhm.
right, if I don't take control of it as the alchemist, that's when you start to fall into depression. You start to fall into vices. You start to fall into all that other stuff. What has been your experience taking that untangible creative potential and turning that into something else? Maybe you've gone through something, you don't have to get too deep, but
Mhm.
walk me through that process of how you've been able to take something untangible and create something from your mind and make it physical. I don't think, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't really realize how like powerful that is.
Mhm.
Can you walk us through an example of when you've been able to do that?
Okay, so so similar kind of experience of having to essentially walk through my own darkness to find the light to then be able to create from the dark. So for me, first thing that's coming to my mind is back in, I'm not good with dates, so while back, same thing, I kind of fell into a depression, and literally like the whole world fell on me at once. It kind of felt, and from there, it was honestly, I don't like to use the word depression because the way that I describe it now is like a dark night of the soul that I've used.
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
told you I was going to enjoy this conversation. I told you, but continue.
So yes, so my dark night of the soul would be the best way to describe kind of that process of taking something intangible, making it tangible. So it's been a whole experience. So fell into my own darkness, my own chaos, I like to say, and watched it manifest outside of me. It was daunting. I was like, what in the hell is going on? Boom, boom, boom. Simultaneously around this time, I was now looking back at it with like 2020 vision. Um, because of the pandemic, but so
Oh yeah.
but
I mean, that's a great way to look at it too.
I know, because like literally, okay, I'm so excited. So all the thoughts everywhere, but I need to. Okay, so yeah, I fell into my own darkness, watched my chaos manifest outside of me. But while I was going through it, I had no clue what the hell was going on. I could only describe it as like depression or this or that. Like it felt like no matter what was going on, I couldn't connect with anybody outside of myself for them to fully understand what was going on. But then around this time, I started getting a lot of synchronicities and confirmations from like the universe. So it was kind of like a very slow and at the time scary journey of having to almost like, because I was getting synchronicities, like getting confirmation that I would like my life was falling apart, but then simultaneously it was being built. So that process of going through it ignorantly is what prepared me to be able to conceptualize that experience of bringing something out of like the void. So I had a very monumental experience where I was on mushrooms, okay? And I was in a field. It was so beautiful. I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring art stuff, right? So I did. I was on the trip, and I take it medicinally for like I let the plant, I let it talk to me. I let her guide me. I let her do the whole thing. So I was exploring myself in that medium, and I remember taking a canvas as a canvas, and I was like, it was taking this color, boom, boom, this color, boom, boom, this color, boom, boom. There was no thought. It was no mind. It was just boom, 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 boom. And then when it was done, I looked at it and I had like a deja vu flashback. And I'm like, I've created this before. I looked to the left of me. Why do I see a car license plate that says art? I said, well, what the? I'm like, yo, what the? I'm tripping.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, in that moment, I'm like, I've done this before. I've created before. I am a create. Like it was like my whole life just flashed before my eyes and understanding everything that brought me to that moment. Right. So then from there, while I was processing that trip and coming down, and really grounding within the knowledge that was shared with me, I'm like, yo, that's flow state. So if you've seen the movie Soul, the Disney movie, have you?
I haven't seen it yet, but
Oh,
I
you
know
need to watch it. It's so cute.
flow state.
So there is this one of the characters. There's a scene where he's a pianist, he's a musician. He's doing the piano, doing the piano, doing the piano, doing the piano. Then you see while he's playing piano, you see like in the astral what's going on, where it's like you see his soul in like a bubble in a room of darkness, but he's sitting there just playing the piano like da da da, and it came so naturally, and he was in this flow state of no mind. Um, so that experience of flow state I've been learning through my experiences, like of course like self-discovery, self-trust, self-love, all those different things make up this part of the journey. But essentially my experience of making something intangible tangible has been learning how to access flow state and being able to pull literally what I pull it down in a way, because it's already been in a way like I'm constantly remembering. So
Hmm.
I like pulling it down, if that makes sense. So my experience with all of that has been just a remembrance, and then remembering through accessing flow state. So a lot of my art, a lot of what I create is from that place. And I've been learning how to access that place a lot more without like any type of medium or substance to help get there. But it's like, because it's the combination of self like trust and self knowing at the same time. Because I like to say, when you're in the flow, you're in the know. So I have already, like, I know already, so like I know I've done this, I've created before, I know how to create. And literally like that's it. Oh, lastly, the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, when
That's
literally
another
they're,
one on my list too.
oh, you're going to enjoy them. Oh, please. So there's this one scene where literally I'm picturing it right now, where this girl's fighting. Like there's like a fight scene, and she's literally manifesting anything out of pure thought. She's like, it's so chaotic. It's such a chaotic scene. But I'm thinking of it because it's like when you really understand or sit in the movie, it's called The Donut, but it's like the void. You have the limitless potential of being able to just manifest or create or pull things out of like thought, or not, or no thought, or just like that kind of paradox. But yeah, that is my whole experience thus far of like understanding what that really means. So
Hmm.
yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because this is literally like even the flow state thing. I haven't watched Soul, but the way you described him being in his head, kind of just like doing his craft, that's something that I experienced. That was something that wow, man, even I just had a flashback of like when I first started like designing like clothing and stuff like that. But you get into this state where the way I describe it is I'm in my head. I have my hands behind my neck like this, and my feet are kicked up on a desk, and I'm like whistling a tune, just thinking about nothing while my body's going through the motions. And that's something that I've been trying to like, what I realized as an artist, and that's something that I've only started to label myself as recently. I always understood the weight of it and the responsibility, but I wasn't able to merge the two until probably the last like 2, 3, 4 years. I always
Mhm.
knew that I was getting up to that, but only now I'm able to solidify it. But The one thing that I was, what I was gonna say is, it's been a very lonely journey because there's not too many people that understand that level of it. Because to some
Mhm.
people, you come off kind of like woo woo, and especially with all this spiritual talk and all that kind of stuff. It's been very diluted. So
Mhm.
there are people who are talking about it, but they're not really talking about it. It's just like the same surface level conversations. But what I realized was like periodically I'd have the finished thing in my mind, exactly how it looked like, colors and everything. So I could take a sketch, like even it'll look like crap to anybody looking at it. But for me, I'm like, nope, that's that. And I get into this flow state where I'm like, even in my head, consciously, I'm like looking at my body do what it's doing. I'm like, dude, like what is going on? Like, I know I need to change that color. And it's like I'm watching, and it's funny because the only other time I've really been able to experience this was playing music, like
Mhm.
playing the bass guitar,
Mhm.
especially when playing shows. One thing I've realized is, and I'd get people to film the set because I wouldn't remember it.
Mhm.
I'd plug, only thing I remember is turning my amp on and then turning it off, being like, what happened? Where was I for 45 minutes? And it's the
Mhm.
same thing. I'm in my head, I'm looking at the crowd or the audience. I'm like, the second I start to think about the music is when I screw up. But if I just just allow myself to just trust myself, I'd be
Yes.
playing things that I'm like, oh my God, dude, what the hell? I didn't even know I could play that. Like, what the hell is going on? But it was just like, and that's when I started to realize I was onto something.
Mhm.
And that's when I was able to make the connection to like, okay, the depression isn't depression. It's such
Mhm.
like, that's why I hate the English language because it's so limiting in describing things. But what I was able to realize that I can take an image and that image would be able to express whatever I was going through internally.
Mhm.
How has your journey been as an artist, delving into some of the self discovery stuff, especially as an artist from an artist perspective? How
Mhm.
has that journey been for you?
Can you re-ask the question one more time?
How's that journey of self discovery, coming into knowing all of these things about yourself, tapping into this flow state, this your ability to kind of go into this other, like, the I like to say the dark night of souls, like you're going into this darkness, which I think is beautiful, by the way. You're going
Mhm.
into this darkness and coming out with something tangible. Like how has that journey been for you as an artist to be able to go into this unknowingness that most people don't really talk about? But how has your journey been going into that and finding yourself as an artist in relating with other people as well?
Mm. So yeah, it's been lonely, but it's lonely but not alone.
Big
Because
difference between the two, by the way.
very large. Because like you were saying, like that flow state, in order to like be there, it requires like that self trust. When you start thinking about it, which is like that second guessing almost, and you're tripping up a bit. So it's been like this very extreme version of trusting yourself. It's like, oh, it's like, wait, what do you mean? Like, it's always like, for me, it as an artist, it has been, hmm, it's been like lonely, but also that loneliness is that contrast of having to like double down and be like, no, like I know what I'm experiencing, like I know what I'm talking about. Like I've struggled with a little bit of like that grounding aspect of like having to really trust self to then connect within self and then bring it back out to others. So at times I found myself on my self-discovery journey looking outside of myself to discover myself, and that's contradictory. So um it's it has been it's been odd. It's been scary because like what do you like? It's been like this perpetual like, wait, what do you mean? Like, wait, what do you mean I gotta trust, or what do you mean I gotta go and just do it and figure it? What do you mean I just gotta go into the darkness and it will be okay? And um, while creating as an artist, like I'll say like another thing that's coming to my mind, like it's been a constant journey coming into like how I even want to I'm still figuring out my artistic style in a way. But so like for example, I started off being like, yeah, I want to be an artist. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do tattooing. got into apprenticeship. I'm like, oh hell no, I don't like this. But it was such a prestige, like amazing tattoo place, and I would have been so well known and all these things, but so they didn't feel right. It don't feel right. Nothing, something wasn't whole about this. It didn't fully reflect me, and I had to be like, okay, thank you, but no thank you. And that's been hard. And then from there, it was tattooing. And then from there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do realism sketching. And then I was like, see, but like, yeah, this is cool. Yeah, this feels good. Like, I'm good at it, but something doesn't feel right. And I'm like, what? Like, what? Not realism? Like, what do you mean? So I'm like,
It's
okay.
almost like you choose something, you're like, okay, this is it. This is gonna be the career, or this is gonna be the way. And then it's like, I don't know, man, there's like a disconnect there.
There's a disconnect, and that disconnect is like a disconnect within self to some degree. Because I'm like, okay, like, all right, if this isn't fully the full expression of myself, because like your artistry is like literally like it's like a pure expression of your consciousness. So I'm like, yo, this isn't fully expressing me. Okay, wow, what do you mean? So then I started dabbling with like doodling and like being more free flowing in my thought, in my artistry, playing with different mediums and stuff, different colors, and really having to allow myself as an artist to think outside of the box that I've even put myself in. So for example, right now I'm like, oh, I want to do I've been wanting to do, like, I've been playing around with digital art and like certain like a whole artist style or whatever. But then even while I'm creating, I have to be open to the potential that I don't, this is not that it isn't it, but I don't know something that I don't know. So even when I choose something, I have to allow myself to be comfortable with allowing the void to kind of, or the darkness or the chaos to still allow itself to manifest, even though I've chosen something, if I'm able to illustrate that. But it's been having to constantly be okay with perpetually being in discovery mode, if that makes sense. Where I'm at in my art
100%.
yeah, right now, as where I'm at now, I picked up this book I'm looking at. I think oh Lord, it's called The Artist's Way, and it's like,
Oh, sounds familiar. I think I
oh
have it
Lord,
here somewhere.
oh Lord, I'll just pick it up. So this book, I just started it, but it's like a 12-week course of a spiritual path to higher creativity, and it connects it connects. Let's see if there's a way to. It connects spiritual principles to the concept of being an artist. So, um, she talks about things like, like we have limited self beliefs and stuff like that that come up that prohibit us from being able to fully trust ourselves to then be able to create authentically. So it's been having to break down those limitations while simultaneously creating and knowing that there's always something more to break through. But
Let me ask
yeah.
you a question. Something just came up. um, it's this whole like self-discovery thing has led me to fear and trying to understand that. What I've realized was I can jump out of a plane, I can talk to people and try to strike up conversation. I could do a bunch of things that other people will be terrified to do that come easy to me. But I found that when it comes to sharing my artwork, I'm like, huh. I'm like terrified. Still something I'm going through, which is why I'm doing these podcasts, right? So I can get more comfortable putting myself out there or whatnot. What is it when it comes to your art that you're afraid of doing?
Being vulnerable, like like literally.
What does that mean, being vulnerable? Break that down. What is it that you're afraid of people to see?
The wholeness of me, there's that element of, there's like this illusionary kind of experience that I have of just, like, don't look at me. I don't look.
Do you mind if we go into this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
afraid of people seeing, you're afraid of being vulnerable, and you're afraid of people seeing your wholeness. What describe some of the things in that wholeness that you're afraid of people seeing?
My power. And because there's power in being able to create, there's power in being an artist, there's power in being able to make things intangible, tangible. And then there's this vulnerability of like, because I'm creating something that doesn't already exist, there's this gap of left of being misunderstood, misinterpreted, or misrepresented. So when I put myself on like in a piece of artwork and then I say, hey, like, look at this, I am subjecting myself to people's misunderstandings, misinterpretations. And this is what I've been really working on, having like that really grounded sense of self that regardless if somebody doesn't understand or whatever, I can still stand confidently. But there's still like this thing I'm working through of this book where it's like, no, like I can have the confidence in the knowing that like, no, I am communicating something. I this is valuable. This is worth being shown, even if somebody doesn't fully understand it the first time, because art is subjective inherently. And if like, for example, I'm so bad with art terms, but like I'm more like an expressionist rather than like realist, like real, like I can draw this and people understand what I'm drawing. But if I'm doing something more from like, again, tapping into the flow state is from subconscious mind. If I'm bringing something from the dark to light, that is shining light on things that people may not understand readily or may not understand within themselves or da 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 da.
Or
So,
maybe afraid of.
or again, or maybe even afraid of, because that's that power piece. So it's like, I don't, just that's so part of like my artistry. I've been diluting my art because it's like I'm looking to also be understood while creating, but that's that whole looking outside myself for myself. And it's like, no, stand in it, stand in my vulnerability, stand in my creation, stand in it and own it. But it's a work in progress.
Well, it sounds like from being vulnerable to people not seeing your wholeness, you're afraid of the pain associated to you sharing your artwork.
Because like it's what like I'm
The
being
pain that might be associated because rejection or whatnot.
exactly like the fear of rejection or the fear of this or the fear of that, but it ultimately comes down from like, to me, how I understand any type of fear is like, this is irrational to some degree or another, because ultimately like I'm just being myself and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing like, okay, if somebody doesn't understand, they're not for me, like just keep it pushing. But like there's that still that piece of like, no, but like
That's the key.
yeah,
That's the key. Like
it
straight
is.
up, that's the key. When I started, well, a brand, but when I started So Indifferent, I'm wearing my own hoodie. After high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just randomly drew this on. I was looking for words to describe what I was going through, and difference just matched perfectly because I didn't
Yeah.
care about a lot of stuff back then. But I think
Yes.
ultimately what you said really hit the nail on the head. Like, I think a lot of artists and people, for the true definition of the word artist, are terrified of being themselves to some degree because they're afraid of that being rejected. But I was going to go back to what we said earlier about you going into the unknownness. If you're going into the unknownness and that darkness to pull something out, how is anybody supposed to understand what that is if they've never seen it before? So a part of you being an artist, you have a part of, and I read this earlier today, and I just wrote some notes that I wanted to have something to kind of like to think about today before our conversation. A part of you as an artist is a part of you have to be a little bit crazy. It's a little bit of spice. Like
Yeah.
and I think that's why I want to break down what you meant by the vulnerability, the wholeness, and ultimately being afraid of yourself. I think the craziness, and I'm a big believer in you being able to define what words mean to you. I don't think anybody else can
Yes.
come dangerous territory when you let other people define your existence. And it's all within a boundary, right? But the you have to be a little bit crazy. What that means is you have to be able to break down what crazy means. Like if you're going out being like, I'm holding this pop can, like this is my art, and you're not holding a pop can in your hand,
Yeah.
that's a different level of crazy, because now we're talking about something that everyone else can't see but you can. That's a little out there. But if I take something and I've been able to go through, and most people aren't going to understand or want to be patient enough to understand what your art means, but for the few people that do, for you to be able to go through something and create something tangible, and whether you want to explain it or not or leave it up to them, for you to have that definition of what it is and say that this is what I went through, this is what I was able to come up with, and this is it, I think is beautiful. That in itself is probably the most powerful thing you could do as an artist,
Mhm.
because you it's not even the fact that you're trying to sell it or whatever. You're just saying, I went through that, or I went here, created this, and it's done,
Mhm.
and it's imperfectly perfect because I
Mhm.
created it.
Mhm.
Right. And I think that's been the superpower that I've been able to realize over the last couple of years, because I've been so caught up in trying to be fucking perfect, excuse my language.
No, go.
But what I've been able to realize, especially with these children's books that I was working on, if I make something, and it can be as rough as hell, if I make something and put time into it, it'll be uniquely perfect because I made it. There's no one else that has my fingerprint. So once I got into that headspace, it almost like, okay, guys, I'm gonna go to the, not the darkness, but I'm gonna go to the flow state. I'll see you guys in like 2 hours. Actually, I'm lying. I'll see you guys like 9 hours, and
Yeah.
I just kind of like step in. Right? It's not. I'm not in a point where I'm trying to fight. I'm trying to sit there and be like flow state, flow state, flow. It's like no. It's like now I can kind of step into that
Mhm.
willingly and step out of it.
Mhm.
But it's taken years of what you described. I mean, up to your point where you are now in your life, of
Mhm.
self-discovery, mixing and matching, trying to see, and the conflict between, this is what I'm doing right now, and there's a worldly success aspect to it, but I feel empty inside. Like I've gone through all of that stuff that you described. And I think that's the contrast, because like one example that comes to mind is like, I was at when I used to do shows and events or whatnot. I remember I was selling clothing or whatever, and it was like a packed house. It was a mod club, and there's so many people. And I remember I got called on to go to stage to get ready to perform. I remember walking through, and I felt absolutely nothing,
Mhm.
nothing. And then
Mhm.
that's when I'm like, okay, okay, because deep down, my something inside me is like, I mean, it's not it, but if you want to go, go. Like it's just this, it's
Yeah.
just like it's like trying to, it's like what we said earlier before the call, like the steps just automatically appear when you begin to trust yourself, and trying to get someone else to understand that if you run up these stairs, even though they're not there, they will appear. Good
Mhm.
luck with that. It was just knowing that I was like, there's nothing I can say that's going to get you to understand where I'm coming from unless you experience it and go through yourself. And I think
Mhm.
the painful thing is realizing that this thing that you thought was success in the worldly sense
Mhm.
isn't success,
Mhm.
and you have to go back into yourself to find what that is. That sounds like what you're, the journey you're kind of on right now.
Yes. Thank
Did
you
did
for
did anything resonate with you? I'm curious.
everything. Like as you were talking, I'm like, oh, you putting this into words. Oh, thank yes, this is what I was saying. Like I'm was relating the whole time. And yeah, that's pretty much encapsulates, yeah, what I've been going through. Um and where I'm at now is like literally the door is right there. Like, all right, now I can just step into that space of being able to tap in and out. Because this is a very encompassing conversation. Like, ugh, I'm so excited. This is a very encompassing conversation because what you're relaying back to me right now is like what I want to say is thank you for reminding me. Thank you for the reminder because it's like I needed to hear this again, once again, to be like, no, like exactly, okay, let's go. Like I've got my backpack packed, like all right, I'm ready. My goodness. I'm like, no, I'm like, I got this. Like, put my backpack on. I'm like, all right, I know yes, this is literally what's been happening, what's been going on, where I'm at now. And I am yeah, everything just resonated. And it's like thank you for the reminder all the way down to like breaking down the whole not having to be perfect, breaking down the perfectly imperfect, the crazy aspect, the all of these different things. Like this is very healing in a way, being able to talk to another person that has a very encompassing perspective of the artist, of the artist way that I can relate with in fullness. Because yeah, like also with relating to other artists, like you're saying, like there's like not everybody is, you know, I try to be nice. Not everybody's an artist. Not everybody's a creator. Like, and being able to talk to somebody else right now who fully actually gets what I've been going through, like everything, it's validating. It's affirming. It's like no, I'm not. I may be crazy to some, all right, but there's other people out here that understand the crazy.
I
Like,
mean, well, this is what I'm saying, why it's important to define words, right? Because
mhm,
you can scroll on social media and see a whole world of crazy, right?
mhm,
But that crazy to some degree is accepted.
mhm,
Like, oh, that person's doing their thing. They decided to put these foreign objects into their body that make them three
yep.
times the size. That's fine. That's fine. That's cool. But for you as
Mhm,
an artist, that's something else where people are kind of like, but ultimately it's not even the fact that you're an artist. I just think it's the fact that and I'm a part of a men's group, and one of the guys, he always says something that sticks with me. But um, in this type of society, for you to be yourself is a rebellious act.
Oh,
And I think ultimately what I'm trying to do, and what's so indifferent has taught me indifference. What indifference has taught me,
yeah.
the first and foremost, a lot of this shit's bullshit that I don't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily drive with my value system. And I think this whole process has been a process of removing things,
Hmm.
because ultimately it's not really self-discovery, it's rediscovering yourself, because I
Hmm.
think we have that essence as children, but the world always
Yes.
pops crap on top of it, which is why I think, at least for me, my the term artist for me always comes with a level of responsibility.
Mhm.
And I think that's been the thing that's kind of, well, shocked my system, but and it kind of gave me a better understanding to kind of have more of a free form way to create, to help inspire people. And the way that I think about it, I'm just a dude in the forest with a little lantern where
Yeah.
people are lost. I'm like, here's a pencil, here's a sketchbook and a journal. Just go that way. At least write down some of your things in your journey so you can at least understand. And then what I realized is, even looking back in journaling or sketching, just to see how far you've come. Please tell me you own a sketchbook.
I own multiple. I was literally,
Thank you.
to speak to this, I was literally like, I forget which question it was that I was reflecting on, like the prompts that you gave me to think about, but the whole, so I've been like documenting things here and there, like like you just sketch, like when you look back at all hmm, like the concept of like when you write something down, or like I was saying earlier, like when you express yourself or do a piece of art or whatever, it's like a pure expression of like your consciousness in which where you're at now. So I've been able to look at other art pieces that I've done or different poetries that I've done and be able to reflect on where I was, and then also simultaneously looking at where I was also shows me where I'm going and where I have been. And it's been crazy. This is describing an experience where I've had where it's like I'm watching, being able to reflect, you're watching yourself kind of, for lack of better words, yeah, like we're saying, like remember ourselves. So it's such a mind thing that I'm trying to illustrate right now, but it's like to throw it back
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
to throw it back to like the inner child, and like that this book describes like your inner artist, like in protecting that artist, protecting that pure, like innocent creative energy, and like in the innocence of being able to express yourself authentically and fully, just like you said, it's a rebellious act. So protecting that part of oneself, like we kind of failed as a society, low key, high key, but like we've been putting stuff on top of each other, projecting stuff, projecting, like that's why you're saying like not allowing somebody else to define you, because it is like only you can be you. So that whole thing of like being careful of like what ideologies, what thought process, what understandings of yourself that you pick up on, because then it muddles and it takes away from the pure expression of oneself. So to throw it back to like the whole how I've been, when I reflect on like my sketchbook, I reflect on my poetry and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, like no, this is me, like no, this is me. And I've been like re-understanding myself through reflecting on myself. I'm like, no, like yeah, like it is just watching myself remember myself and come back to that pureness and that innocence of fully expressing myself authentically, despite what the external world may see or understand, because it's me. So yeah, I am.
I'm curious because I, what I'm hearing is there are certain things, and I've experienced this too, but there's certain um let's call them, I don't know, save points. I don't know. Just like, how do I describe it? Bear with me. This analogy has kind of popped up, but like, it's can you describe in your journey where, because you're looking back at all these various points or all the things that you've done,
Mhm.
what's the Waldo in your
Oh,
experience? Like, what's the Waldo that kind of like, hey, you were there on the other page, or that other experience? Like, what's this? Like, what's the Waldo, if that makes sense?
I love that analogy. Oh my
Because
goodness.
you're rediscovering yourself, right? So
Mhm,
you're basically, um it's almost like you've done it before, but
mhm.
I'm curious as to what were the things that where you're like, hey, like, I, there's that thing that was there before, or like, hey, there's that. Is as many pages in Waldo books that there are,
Mhm.
on every page you can guarantee you'll find Waldo. There might
Waldo.
be lookalikes, but you'll know who Waldo is. What's been the key thing that has been popping up consistently throughout your journey, through all the various mediums and all the creative things that you've done?
The Waldo.
Does that analogy make sense?
No, it makes all the sense. And it makes all the sense. Oh, that was great. It's been like, of course, it's like what's coming to my head first. Like, it's been me. Like, it's been me underneath all of the. It's the Waldo in all of the reflections of how I've expressed myself is for lack of better words, I want to say my own sound, my own language in a way. Like,
Mhm.
I've been able to see and, for lack of better words, feel. Look, I don't have the words for it right now, but like this, I've been able to feel or see out or notice or pick up on when that's authentic to me. Like the authenticity is Waldo. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, this was authentic. This was authentic, but not fully. But like you can see the pieces of truth of oneself through the whole, through all of it. So it's like Waldo is truth, authenticity, and the full expression of me. So it's like picking up on those things, and then like like, and like those are like the sparks of remembrance of like, no, that's my truth. Like that was my truth. That's my truth. That was my truth. Because like that whole, everybody says it all the time in this pop culture. Well, this is my truth, but you really got to go through self remembrance to remember what your truth is. So it's being able to like intuit in a way, like, no, like that's my innocence, for lack of better words. Like that's my inner artist. Like, no, that's me. That's my truth. That's my authentic expression. So I've been having to, no, I think that answers it thus far. That's the most words I have to describe at the moment. But that's such a brilliant question. I loved that, and the analogy and everything. That was
I
brilliant.
you know what's funny too, like, I that's what I'm saying, like, I think I've always been like, I don't know if it's ADHD or whatever, but I've always been like a creative person. I think I've always been able to articulate myself in analogies. I don't know why the hell Waldo popped up to my head, but I just saw his big ass head with the little glasses and the cap.
Yeah.
But I think, like the picture that I saw in my mind, because I think the last time I picked up a Waldo book was like in a picture of like my grade school library when I was thinking about it. But we're talking about like inner child, inner self, and I think what you actually just touched on was like that whole remembrance thing. As you were saying, my mind's just like, oh, that remembrance thing was like you, Chad, like the
Mhm.
Chad as like a child that didn't have control over the world around him, that was reacting to everything. And what I actually pictured too while you're saying that was like, and I think that's something that what I realized is depression and all that other stuff. A lot of the stuff that adults are dealing with are stem from their childhood,
Mhm.
and their inner child finding a way to protect them. You could think
Mhm.
of like, and I could picture people too, like the biggest guy, super strong, goes around like hurting people. He's doing that in a way to preserve himself from getting hurt. So I'm going to
Mhm.
hurt you first before you hurt me. I'm not even going to deal with the opportunity of you hurting me because I can't deal with my emotions. And I
Mhm.
think you touched on it earlier, like especially with the whole defining your words. I think on removing all of that to rediscover yourself, it's the importance of remembering that a lot of the imagery that we're taking in are other people's ideas of who we are and what we should be. And I think that's where the danger occurs too. So it's
Mhm.
just like when you're talking, I was listening, but it's just for some reason, like my like I don't know, I was picturing myself at that school. I grew up in Jane and Finch. I don't know if you're from Toronto. I went to a
No.
school called Burgrove. Um, and that school, I always have dreams about it. Like I'll have a dream like probably like once every month in the hallways or whatnot. But that school for me was the safest place I've ever been, like just as a child growing up. And I think the Wobble thing popped up, it was literally me, like my kid inside, just like playfully, like, oh, Waldo. Just like I can't explain where Waldo popped up from, but I think it's just I don't know. It's just that was like I don't know. It's so weird. I pictured like the whole thing and everything too. It's so strange. But I think that's part of the what I'm trying to do with this whole podcasting, right? So try to get people to understand that the person you think you are is who you think you are, and there's so much more that you're capable of. And when you
Mhm.
discover that, it's a very powerful thing as well. So I appreciate
Mhm.
you sharing everything that you shared up until this point because it's 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 helped me like um really connect back with my purpose and my mission. And I like to say that these interviews are no different than the where Waldo is moments for me too, because it allows me to tap back into that responsibility as an artist. So I'm glad that we were able to connect as well.
Me too. I want to quickly touch on responsibility because when you were describing like the child just like having no control over the world and more so reacting, and that's when having, because again, there's as we grow up, literally what comes experience, so we learn responsibility more. But like that's why, as when we're here now as like adults, you're seeing people like responding or reacting to their environment in a way that's out of self-preservation. But the responsibility is being able to, instead of reacting to one's environment, which is taking on all of these projections or taking on all these interpretations, and like, it's responding to the environment from a space of like, that's your image, that's what you understand, that's what you're communicating, but like this is me. So like that, I'm picturing like from, for lack of better words, from like a baby to a kid, where when kids are like, no, like no, like that's not what I'm saying. So it's like we, um, as somewhere it gets lost through, I there's many ways, but sometimes it somehow gets lost, or people give up that kind of power of being able to be like, no, like this is me, like no, who I think I am is what I am, because of that taking on, or the reactionary aspect, rather than responding to one's environment, if that makes sense. Like that's inherently your responsibility, is what protects you in a way from not muddling your perspective or your view upon yourself, because then when you skew your view, you skew you, and then you can't find Waldo. Like,
Hey, no, you're absolutely right. And I think the important takeaway with that too is you don't have to go around and get everybody else to accept your image or your idea of yourself. Like for you to go around of your way to, like for me to be like, no, I'm an artist. You have to see me as an artist, and like
mhm.
get all bug eyed and crazy. That's no different than you being the bully, because
Exactly.
I personally think in that is a bit of insecurity, because if you knew who you were and I don't need to go around telling everybody I am that I am. I know I'm that. I don't need to tell you that. So if you can say, I can say that I'm an artist, or I've had other people say that I'm an artist the years leading up to here, and I didn't really identify with it. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know, man. I feel like something's missing. Like I have like half the puzzle piece, but okay.
Mhm.
But I think where it gets diluted is when you start going around saying like, this is what I am. The world around me has to change to fit
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
I don't agree with that at all.
I'm on the same page with that, because that's the whole like looking outside of yourself to validate yourself, or to, like you're just looking outside yourself. Like ultimately, just we need to literally go within, stay within, and like allow for our internal to reflect our by staying with there and then creating from there, expressing from there. That's how you're able to create an authentic experience where you have more fullness, and like have people. that like understand you, or you then manifest a job that is in full reflection of you, or you're creating art that's wholly you, you know, with like going inside out rather than outside in.
Hmm.
Cause, hmm yeah.
One thing I want to share with you, since you're actively on your journey, is to continue to indulge in your self discovery and understand who you are and why you're here,
Mhm.
and the power behind you and your words and your art and your vision. You're not crazy. I'll tell you first and foremost, you're not. For the years that I thought I was crazy, dealing with depression and really honing in on a lot of the issues that I realized that I was indifferent about.
Mhm.
Like through that indifference, I was able to find, through not caring, I was able to find something to care about. That makes sense.
Yes.
And I
Mhm.
think that was a necessary thing that led me here to now say I'm still indifferent,
Yeah.
but I care about the youth and children and their mental health and the importance of them being able to express themselves, especially in the world of social media and all that stuff and imagery and all that crap.
Mhm.
But I have something to say now, and I
Mhm.
want you to listen. And I
Mhm.
think what I'm trying to get more comfortable with, and I'm feeling it inside, like in my chest, like it's crazy. What
Me
I'm
too.
trying to get more comfortable with is accepting that power, and that for me has been very difficult
Mhm.
because I think you mentioned transmutating earlier, and I was like, oh my god, I'm loving this already. And we're like 2 seconds into the interview, but I think for me, what I've been, my fuel source has been more so over the, actually no, for a long time actually, and it's been detrimental. Has been like anger and
Yeah.
frustration.
Oh, I would no. I've been literally no. I need to say I've been saying. I've been affirming to myself literally all day. My anger is righteous. My anger is righteous. My anger is righteous. Continue. I'm so excited. Hold
Be-
on.
because, and this is what I'm saying, it's so important to define
Mhm.
your words and really understand what that means. Because for me, my anger was, and my anger stemmed from the image and the expectation people would put on me for expressing myself and being authentically me, right?
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times, and this is something I'm realizing is by design, but I can't tell you how many times I go out and be myself to only have the world around me try to push me back in the box. You don't do that, Chad. You're black, or you're this, or
Oh.
you don't do that. But what I realized was, it's like, it's not like that's coming from a particular group. That would be coming from people that look like me too. But what
Mhm.
I realized was, oh, this is what I'm really dealing with: indifference. That's why the indifference for me
Mhm.
was a in self-preservation, because if I wasn't indifferent, the anger would have consumed me. And
Yeah.
everybody, I can't even tell you how many traps are set up for men
Mhm.
where if you can't control your anger, there's a place with a bed, you get fed 3 times a day, or
Mhm.
there's so many other places that will have something ready for you if you can't deal with that anger. So
Mhm.
my anger was filtered through indifference, where I gave me the ability unknowingly to myself to be able to pick and choose what I decide to give my emotional energy to.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's why I'm saying, why I'm stressing like the importance of self discovery and really taking the time to define your expression, your words, and how you decide to go about the world, because that ability to I think it's discernment's the word, has
Yes.
led me here to find something to care about. Where now I'm using my art, imagery, symbols, the importance of all of that to redirect this well, society. No, I'm in the society. I'm not for everybody.
Mhm.
I
Ain't no.
always say,
I love
like,
it.
if I'm in a room full of like 100 people and 3 people walk away, it's like, dude, like what you said really resonated with me. I'm gonna think about that. I've done my job, because I've been around the other side where there's hundreds of people and they're like, dude, that was great. I'm like, nah, no, I'm not
Mhm.
really. It doesn't really hit. So it's like, on one side, the worldly thing, you're being noticed, but the other side is like 3 people that walk away and it's like, dude, you failed, man. I'm like, no,
Mhm.
like, and I think that's the thing that I realized as an artist, especially with music too. And I'll say this to wrap it up. th-
Mhm.
what I realized when people said I want to be a musician, the greatest acid test is to have a show with 4 people in the audience and see how they respond.
Mhm.
If they don't give the same energy as they would to a room with 100 people, they're not serious.
Mhm.
On my experience, that's how I felt about it.
Mhm.
Because I've been to situations, nah, man, I'm not 3 people. It's like, no, those 3 people could lead to another 30 people for your next event.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's the thing that like is so crazy about this whole self-discovery journey. It's not these big grandiose things that are going to change the world. It's these tiny little interactions. I remember I had a kid once, and I'll wrap it up with this.
Mhm.
I had a kid come up to me after a show once, and it was like I said, it was like probably 10, 15 people. I thought I did whatever. I remember going to the washing to wash my face and just clean up. And this kid was like probably like 9 or 10. First, I'm like, how the hell did you get in? I'm like, like, bro, what the hell? This is like a heavy show. What the hell? But he's like, dude, I saw you up there. You're really good. Like that. I like that was really cool. I want to learn how to play bass.
Mhm.
That for me, like you, I don't care how much money I had to spend on tickets. I don't care how much time I wasted, how many times I screwed up. That for me was worth it. To be able
Mhm.
to do something and inspire someone else, especially a younger individual, that to me is what fulfills my soul and fulfills my heart. So that's what I'm saying to you, like, and to anybody else listening. Forgot there's people listening because I feel like I'm just talking to you right now. But to continue to stay on that self-discovery journey and continue to be authentic to yourself and continue to find Waldo. As funny as
Mhm.
that is.
Oh my
But
god.
you had there's a couple points there you stopped. You wanted to say something. I'm curious what you had to say in regards to anything that I said because it looked like something resonated.
Everything. I want to start by saying, like, I remember when I saw So Indifferent, something resonates and it clicked. And so, thank you for reminding me of that. That indifference, because I've been saying I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, and then I get like I don't care. But then through that I don't care, I've been learning what I care about. So that's one thing. Another thing of like being, so there's something you mentioned where it's like being. Actually, I'll start here. Another thing, the anger piece, like to share my
Mm,
anger has been people not seeing me, like I'm sorry, I talk a lot, I talk a lot, right? I've been always expressive like my whole life, right? But it's like, oh, you're not hearing me, like you're just interpreting what I'm saying, like no,
mm,
like you're not hearing what I'm saying. No, like you are taking what I'm saying and doing something else with it. And like that anger, like I've been, today I was like, no, like I've been really feeling, no, my anger is righteous because of my relationship with indifference, of being like having to preserve so I'm not like out there, like, because I used to be pretty destructive, right? I used to be out here tearing stuff down, being angry, just anger at the world, right? But then through indifference of being able to pull back and then choosing how I express that and choosing the environments that I allow myself to pour my energy into, is also protects me from getting angry, because I need to put myself in environments that no, that can hear me or can see or want to, even rather than just expressing like not of it, expressing all the time so willingly, because then there's some people who just aren't for me. I'm in the world, not of it. So it's like finding and aligning myself with experiences that don't allow for my anger to become all consuming, because I'm in an environment that's reciprocal, and that anger has, like, there's a constant give and take that's transpiring, rather than like you're saying, just like putting yourself out there. So like being in a room of those 4 people and accepting that it's like or like if it's only 4 people or only this many people hear me, that leads to this or that leads to that. And I'm so excited right now. This whole conversation has been affirming. It's been reigniting, like you're saying. Like it has been a full circle moment for me in so many different ways. And like, yo, I literally just
you
Mhm.
you know what's interesting too? Why I say that? It was 2016, 17, 18. That was like at the bottom of the barrel, just like. And that's the thing. I was doing like worldly things. I was like, oh, that's so cool. But I was like, I was in a men's group. It was the first men's group. And it was like the summertime. And there's a new gentleman that joined. His name was Ale. He was part of the group for like 2.5 months max. And I remember he was an elementary school teacher, and just the way that he would talk about his kids, like you think he adopted all of them for 8 hours a day, like legit. Like he was
Mhm.
just like all about his children. And I remember he said something that stuck with me, and he's like, children are the citizens of tomorrow. Like
Hello.
it's my responsibility to make sure that they have the right tools and know how to navigate the world in the future. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
just like, damn, like for some reason that just it's almost like something in my head, as depressed as I was, found the energy to put it on a sticky note and tack it on the wall for some reason. I don't know. And then I found out like a couple months later that he passed away.
Oh.
So it's like, and that was like such an eye-opening moment because what I realized was like this person was in my life for like 2.5 months, not
Mhm,
even every other or every Wednesday, occasionally every Wednesday for like an hour, 2 hours. That's how long he's in my life. And he
mhm,
said this one thing that transformed it.
mhm,
That's when I realized that it isn't about the numbers, it's about the tiny little conversation that you have that have the potential to change everything. Just want to say
mhm.
that.
Thank
So
again.
that's why I like doing these conversations with people and just talking to other artists because I'm realizing that for you to be an artist in this day and age and to be yourself,
Mhm.
you're gonna some aspect of you at some point is gonna struggle with self imposter syndrome or whatnot. So I appreciate you being vulnerable and taking that journey with me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Literally just thank you for doing what you're doing. This conversation has transformed my experience. So I like you're saying I'll take I'm throwing back to that picture. You're like you're in the lantern. You're like go this way. Like
Yeah.
literally from this conversation, I'm like nah. Like yes, go this way. Like continue going. Like I am getting that whole imagery of because yeah, like I'm just coming. I'm in a place of transition. So I found a little spark that reminds me of my spark, and now I'm able to go ignite. So, literally, thank you so much for being you. Thank you for like re- this whole conversation, but ultimately, thank you for being you because your intention met my intention, and literally. There's many inventions to be had after just this freaking conversation. Like it this is very this is great like that thank you because yeah like even from the beginning of this conversation you saw when I was like having trouble describing like I was coming out of my shell a bit but like now we can see from this conversation you see me now like I'm here ready to
It's
talk.
so funny because I'm watching you now and like the image in my mind, it was just basically like the whole lantern in the forest thing. It's just like, okay, now I know where I'm going. Oh, it's right there. It's there the whole time. Just gotta go over there. It's like, oh, okay. And then I just gotta, and now you have like the sketchbook and the journal. And it's like now it's like, okay, bye, Chad. It's like, okay, later.
Yeah,
That's hilarious. It's just funny
yeah.
because I'm just like I'm seeing all of that, and that's literally why I'm doing what I'm doing for moments like this. Because I
Mhm,
can tell in the beginning of our conversation before we started recording that you're
mhm,
like I'm trying to like find like, and you mentioned something about like you just waiting like trying to figure out the pieces and everything. It reminded
mhm,
me of lyrics to a song. It's called The Color Mar I forgot the name of the song, but the lyrics are like um basically sometimes the pieces are meant to fall or like
mhm,
oh sometimes it takes your whole world falling apart to fall into place for somebody else.
mhm,
So sometimes it might be all chaotic, but you can meet somebody and be like, oh, it's that piece goes there, that piece goes. That's why I felt this conversation. Not that I'm putting myself on a, oh, you need to go this. I just think it's refreshing for me too, because
mhm,
I've been like, man, I feel like I'm wait, like I don't feel like there's no, I just like I get to these points where I'm like, am I wasting my time?
mhm,
Like, is this worth it?
mhm,
Is it worth what I'm going through emotionally and mentally to continue to do this? And I think
mhm.
for you, you were the person in the forest being like, hey, try to go that way. And now I'm like, oh shit, like it was that way. Oh shit. So it's funny that we're both having the same reciprocal feeling
Mirror,
after having the
mirror.
conversation. So I appreciate you being you. And I was like I said before, I was looking forward to this conversation from the day you reached out to me. So I'm glad we were able to connect. Is there anything else you want to say to wrap things up? I could talk for 3 hours, and I gotta remember, like, shout out to Porter. We were talking for about 3.5 hours. So I'm trying to be conscientious of time. So yeah, does anything you want to, any final notes or anything you want to share about your work or where you can find you or
There's one thing like I screamed out, which was mirror, mirror, like how we're able to have we're both able for each other to be able to be like, no, like literally iron sharpening iron, like boom, okay, like it's like a crossroads, but it was like to meet up to be able, like I am just very grateful. It's been a while since that I've met somebody like outside of like my immediate community that has been able to like literally like have that reciprocal exchange. So now I'm excited, and this is affirming that I am further creating a reality for myself that is able to reflect my authenticity, my power, my heart's desire, that all those different things. I also resonate with the protection of the children, like all of the things that your heart was communicating. I was able to find like reflection in and resonance in. So it's been very nice to experience this one. And then in regards to me and my artistry and where to find me, right now I'm still in my little, this is part of like my, I guess for lack of better words, like putting myself out there. I also follow like the seasons. So right now is like the solstice is around the corner, like 2 days from now. So it's like that planting seeds time. I don't know where I'm gonna be in the spring because I'm currently growing in the darkness to pop back out. But as of right now, like Niyah is the name. Omnizeno is the universe. I didn't even get to touch on that. But those two words are um, like, yeah, that's Nirana is the name, Omnizeno is the universe. So if anybody wants to try to find me in my universe, Omnizeno is where to find me at. And that is still in creation mode. So for me to sit here and tell you what that universe is, I'm doing it a disservice. But those are the two key things I can give for if anybody wants to find me again. Omnizeno and Nayariana.
That's beautiful. And you know what? I appreciate you being authentic and be like, you know what? No, I'm in the cocoon stage right now.
Mhm. Like, I don't know.
So when
Yeah.
you are ready, I'll definitely be there to help support and share whatever you're creating.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that. Cause yeah, I would love to reconnect when I'm back to reconnect in the
Oh,
world. Cause
100%.
like
That's why I love doing this.
yeah,
This is like a safe point. I want
yeah.
to come back 2 year, like a year, 6 months, whatever, and
Mhm.
look back. That's what I said. It's very selfish. I'm going to listen to this for the rest of the week and take in everything like I do with all the other podcasts,
Mhm.
and then use that as like a reference point, because when I do connect with you again in the future, I want
Mhm.
to be able to look back and be like, wow, like you were there and like you were in the forest, but now you're like on top of this mountain over here killing it. So I appreciate you stopping by, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Oh, you want to go ahead?
One last lyric that came into my mind when you said it goes, I'll use you as a focal point. And then another word that goes like, if you talk enough sense and you lose your mind. So this conversation, like that's where I'm ending off on. Like this been a focal point. I refound this. That's it. Like that's it. That lyric came into my mind, so I wanted to share it, and boom, like this conversation has definitely been a focal point. I thank you for the affirmations and how grounding this conversation has been. Because throw it back to the beginning of what I shared, I just came out of an environment that made me feel crazy. So this has been healing, transformative, affirming, reorienting, and just everything it needed to be. So I'm excited to even reconnect, and whenever it realigns again in divine time, like it will, I'm so excited. And I am glad that we both have things to take away and, use for our personal bundles and just, go into the world and relearn and rediscover. Oh, bundles for our self-discovery journey. So this is so great.
I'm so glad we're able to connect. And most definitely, you let me know when you're ready, and I'll carve out some time to have a conversation.
Perfect. You'll hear from me again. I got your email and we'll go from there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on another episode of Uncovering Creativity. I'm still getting used to doing these outros. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and tune in next time for another episode.